D-levels haven't stopped working because of the variation in their use. And I've been using them now since about 1986, and they haven't stopped working yet. There have had to be some adjustments made, but no, they work. They work beautifully. I trade very short term, at least 4 days a week. It's nights here in Bangkok. I get anywhere from, I'd say, 2 to 16 trades a day. Probably average about 7 or 8 trades a day or a night. That's scalping stuff, in and out quickly. I also take position trades in the stock market. Now, those position trades typically last no more than a week or 2. Possibly an hour or 2, but they can last longer. I mean, I do take positions in bond markets and speculative stuff, muni bonds and various other instruments that can last longer. I say I trade 4 days instead of 5 days because I really believe that we all need breaks. And if you're scalping, you're literally glued to the market for anywhere from 8 or 9 hours a day, because this is the pre-market, and that takes a toll on you whether you're willing to admit it or not. And even though it's the most fun in the world, you need to get a break, you know. And I find I do just as well, if not better, trading 4 nights instead of trading 5. My indicators are applicable to any liquid markets. Any liquid markets. And if you're really good, you can even use them on markets that aren't very liquid. The biggest mistake I've made was when I started trading seriously in 1967. And I started out with about $600. It's all the money I had when I hit California after graduating college. And not too long after that, I was trading a $30,000 account. Now, I managed to do that through the misuse of money management. Being an engineer, I was able to do some very crude mathematical risk analysis. It would be crude by anything that would be done to today's standards, but it made the point that the amount of risk that I was putting on was not necessarily advantageous to the amount of money that I was making, but it could dramatically increase the volatility of my account. And after I halved my account in about 4 days, from 30,000 down to 15, I realized that I was doing something wrong, and a lot of my results were due to trading at the right time rather than being a capable trader. I mean, I was a good trader, but 600 to 30 grand? No. My best trades are trades that are overcoming difficult situations. In other words, I did a private seminar, an advanced private seminar here about a year ago, and on 6 or 7 trades, I had 6 winners. I had 1 very small loser. He was in a foreign currency. My best trade of the day was the loser. The reason why is because that loser was the toughest trade I had. I had to come out of that without too much risk and without losing very much money. I came out of it with a 1 pip loss, and it was well executed. So your best trades are actually your losing trades that you come out of well. I can remember a very bad trade I made about 6 or 7 months ago, and it wasn't a big money trade, but it was really a bad trade. What happened was I buy-stopped myself into the market, and my system, my approach, has me buying retracements or selling retracements for initiating an order. I rarely initiate an order on a stop. So I did in this case, and when I do that, I have a timer. And the timer gives me 1 minute to be profitable. If I love the trade, I might go 3 minutes. I literally set the timer, and it'll go off in 1 minute, and I look and see if I have a positive equity. If I have a positive equity in that trade, I can stay with it. If I don't, I get out. Well, in this particular night, I went 1 minute. I liked the trade, so I said, I'll let it go 3 minutes. I went 3 minutes, and turned out that I went 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, and it ended up taking a loss. And the money was not the issue, but the fact that I did not stay with the plan was. And that was one of my worst trades in the last year. I'd say it was my worst trade because it didn't stick with the plan. I don't reward myself in any substantive manner when I make good trades. I expect to make good trades. You know, that's what I expect to do. Why would I reward myself? I wouldn't do anything differently. I mean, when I started, the only book on the shelf was Wells Wilder's technical analysis book, which was $60. That was back in, I don't know what year it was, but it was a long time ago. I think that was around the early 80s when I was trading, starting to trade the futures markets. And you know, I thought it would be easy because I'd done so well in the stock markets from '67 on. It wasn't easy. And but he was the only guy out there. And there were some other books, some other stuff, but they weren't easily accessible. You know, you stumble around and you find some good people that'll, you know, show you the way and point you in the right direction. And you take it from there and do a lot of research. Yes, my favorite trading rule is loss of opportunity is preferable to loss of capital, and I firmly believe that.